The moment a single police general refused to blink, an entire system flinched. In a country where power often bends rules in silence, one decision landed like a thunderclap. Not because it was loud, but because it was clean. What you're about to hear is not a story about hero worship. It's about pressure, timing, and the rare collision between authority and conscience. By the end, one question will linger. Was this an exception or a turning point? Before we go further, consider this. When institutions fail, democracy doesn't collapse overnight. It erodes quietly, one compromise at a time. And then, unexpectedly, someone says no. So ask yourself this as we begin. If you were standing at the center of that pressure, would you hold the line or step aside? Ltgen Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi didn't arrive as a headline. He arrived as a problem for the wrong people. In an environment where loyalty is often mistaken for silence, he disrupted the rhythm. That disruption mattered more than any speech. His tenure in KwaZulu-Natal unfolded during a season of public fatigue. Communities were exhausted by scandals that ended nowhere. Investigations that promised accountability but delivered delays. Trust had thinned to a thread, then something shifted, not dramatically, not theatrically, just decisively. The first sign wasn't a press conference. It was enforcement without permission. Cases reopened, networks scrutinized. Internal resistance surfaced almost immediately. Power reacts fastest when it feels exposed. Behind closed doors, discomfort grew, because this wasn't performative policing. It was methodical, unapologetic, uninterested in political weather. One sentence began circulating quietly among insiders. He doesn't ask first. That sentence carried weight. In South Africa's democratic architecture, policing is a fault line. Too weak, and criminality fills the vacuum. Too compromised, and justice becomes selective. Too politicized, and democracy starts negotiating with fear. Mkhwanazi's approach disrupted that balance. He didn't promise reform. He practiced it without branding. That's a game changer. The public response didn't erupt immediately. It simmered, because citizens have learned caution. Hope, after all, has been expensive, but patterns are hard to ignore. When arrests stop following political calendars, people notice. When internal discipline stops being selective, whispers spread. When intimidation fails, something cracks. Inside SAPS, not everyone applauded. Change rarely receives unanimous consent. There were murmurs of going too far, of rocking the boat, boats that float on corruption-fear waves. Then came the moments that reframed everything. Decisions taken without media choreography, statements that didn't hedge, actions that didn't retreat. This wasn't about personality, it was about posture. Democracy doesn't demand perfection. It demands resistance to capture. And in that resistance, Mkhwanazi became symbolic, whether he intended to or not. Symbols are dangerous. They inspire expectation. The more visible his resolve became, the more intense the scrutiny grew. Every move analyzed, every silence interrogated, every outcome politicized. Pressure escalated, yet something unusual happened. The line held. That steadiness sent a message beyond KwaZulu-Natal. It reminded institutions that independence is not theoretical. It reminded politicians that authority has limits. It reminded citizens that the system still has reflexes. Short sentence, very long shadow. Experts began weighing in, not with praise, but with caution. Because when one official becomes a standard, others are exposed by comparison. That's uncomfortable for bureaucracies built on uniform mediocrity. Still, the facts remained stubborn. Crime syndicates reacted. Internal resistance hardened. Public confidence ticked upward, slowly, carefully. Democracy doesn't roar back. It exhales. Midway through this story, pause for a moment. If accountability feels rare, what does that say about what we've normalized? If integrity feels shocking, what have we accepted as baseline? If this narrative matters to you, stay with it. Because what comes next is where systems usually snap or evolve. As scrutiny intensified, so did attempts at deflection. Old tactics resurfaced. Question motives, reframe intentions, personalize the debate. When substance fails, distraction takes over, yet outcomes kept undermining the noise. Cases moved, processes tightened, signals aligned. This is where many reform stories collapse, at the intersection of pressure and isolation. where support thins and consequences multiply. But this one didn't. Instead, something subtle occurred. Others adjusted their behavior, quietly, preemptively. That's institutional gravity. When one node resists corruption, nearby nodes recalibrate, not out of virtue, out of survival. Critics argued this was temporary, that individuals don't change systems. History suggests otherwise, but with conditions. Individuals don't fix systems, they disrupt equilibrium, and disruption forces choice. South Africa's democratic story has always hinged on moments like this. Not sweeping revolutions, but specific refusals. Not perfect leaders, but firm decisions. The danger now isn't failure, it's mythology. Turning Mkhwanazi into a savior misses the point. The real impact lies in precedent, in proof that resistance is possible within the structure, not outside it. That distinction matters. As the year closed, one phrase began appearing in commentary. Newsmaker of the Year, not because of charisma, but because of consequence. That label reflects something deeper than popularity. It reflects hunger. A public craving signals that the system can still correct itself. Democracy survives on those signals, but signals fade if not reinforced. Momentum decays without replication, and exceptions become footnotes if institutions don't adapt. This is the unresolved tension at the heart of this story. Was this a powerful blow or a solitary strike? The answer isn't written yet, because the true test of democratic impact isn't what one official does. It's what others are forced to stop doing. Final thought. Democracy doesn't announce its victories. It reveals them in resistance, restraint, and resolve. And sometimes, all it takes is one unyielding decision, at the right moment, to remind a nation what still works.